Hey, if you're reading this, you probably already know what it's like to want something you know you shouldn't. I'm just an ordinary guy in his late 20s, stuck in a dead-end marketing job, living paycheck to paycheck in a tiny apartment that always smelled like yesterday's takeout. Then came the day my boss, Ms. Elena Voss, called me into her office for a late-night performance review. That single meeting changed everything. The clock on my screen read past 8 when her message popped up. Short, no emojis, just my name and my office, B.O. Now, my stomach tightened as I walked the empty hallway, shoes echoing too loud on the tile. I knocked once, softly, like I was afraid to disturb the silence between us. She was already there, seated behind the wide glass desk, the city lights flickering through the blinds behind her. Crisp white blouse hugging her frame, the top button undone just enough to catch the eye without meaning to. Or maybe it did. When she leaned forward to point at my quarterly numbers on the screen, her signature jasmine and vanilla scent drifted across the space between us, warm and sweet and impossible to ignore. It hit me like something I'd been thirsty for without knowing. In that moment I became painfully aware of how her eyes lingered on me a second too long, like she was reading something written only for her. I tried to focus on the charts, on the polite feedback she gave about my campaigns, but my pulse kept skipping. Her voice was low, professional, yet each word seemed to settle against my skin. She smiled once, small and knowing, when I stumbled over an explanation for a missed deadline. That smile stayed with me long after I left her office that night, replaying in the dark of my apartment while I stared at the ceiling. Every morning after that, our paths crossed in ways that felt too deliberate to be chance. Mostly, I'd step in, heart already climbing, and there she'd be, standing close enough that the air between us felt thinner. She'd brush past me on her way out, the soft silk of her blouse grazing my arm for half a second, and I'd catch that same jasmine scent again, clinging to my shirt like a secret. We barely spoke, just a quiet good morning that somehow carried weight. My heart would race anyway. A stupid, traitorous rhythm I couldn't quiet. I started finding reasons to stay late, just to see if her office light was still on, just to hear the faint click of her heels down the corridor as she finally left. I told myself it was ambition, that I was proving dedication. The way the whole floor felt different when she was still there, like the building itself was holding its breath with me. She paused at the doorway, just for a moment, her gaze flicking to mine across the small space. The overhead lights caught the faint sheen on her lips as she offered the smallest nod. Nothing more, but that nod sent heat rushing through me, slow and undeniable, like gravity pulling me towards something I had no business wanting. I kept telling myself this was harmless, but noticing was the same as crossing a line. The ache in my chest grew sharper. I was becoming obsessed with the almost, with the space between us that felt charged, electric, alive with everything we weren't saying. And then, last Thursday, she asked me to stay after hours again. Not for numbers this time. Something about finalizing a client proposal that couldn't wait until morning. I said yes before my brain could catch up. As I walked toward her door, the office dark and quiet around me, I felt it. That pull, that dangerous gravity, tightening around my ribs. Her voice called me in, soft and steady, and when I stepped inside, the air felt heavier than before. She looked up from her desk, blouse still pristine but somehow more open at the collar now, and for a heartbeat neither of us spoke. The silence stretched, humming with everything we were both pretending was there. I kept telling myself she was my boss, 10 years older, married and completely out of my league. Getting involved would be career suicide, plain and simple. Yet every night I lay in bed, the sheets dangled around my legs, replaying the exact moment her fingers had brushed mine when she handed me that file. My mind whispered, just once wouldn't hurt. Just once to know what that electricity felt like when it was accidental. The guilt twisted in my chest, sharp and familiar. She had a life, a husband, a position that could end mine with a single word. I wasn't supposed to want this. I wasn't even supposed to notice the way her presence filled every room like a slow wave pulling at the shore. But the voice in my head wasn't quiet. It grew louder in the dark, feeding on memories of her low laugh, the faint curve of her smile that felt meant only for me. I told myself I could stop any time, that noticing was the same as falling. Still, my body betrayed me, heat pooling low every time I closed my eyes and imagined her closer. One Thursday night the office stood empty, lights dimmed to nothing but emergency glow. She asked me to help carry some boxes to her car, her voice casual, almost too casual. I followed her down to the underground parking garage, the air cool and heavy with the scent of concrete and faint exhaust. Our hands touched while loading the trunk, just fingers grazing, nothing more. But then she turned, sudden and sure, pressing me back against the cold metal of her car. Her body was inches from mine, heat radiating through her blouse, and before I could draw breath she kissed me hard. The faint taste of her lipstick, the way her breath mingled with mine in the shadowed space. My hands found her waist without permission, holding on as if the ground might shift. Every rue lid clung to shattered in that heartbeat. She was my boss. She was married, and none of it mattered against the pull that had been building for weeks. We didn't make it to her car. Right there against the cold concrete wall, the distant hum of the city above us forgotten, the line dissolved completely. Her skirt shifted higher as my fingers traced upward, feeling the delicate lace beneath her blouse, the warmth of her skin rising to meet me. The only sounds were our ragged breathing and the faint echo of her soft sighs against my neck, each one sending tremors through me. Her hands moved with quiet authority, pulling me deeper into the moment, teaching me how dangerous her touch could be, how it could make the rest of the world disappear. I should have stopped us. The thought flashed through my mind even as I leaned in closer, lost in the jasmine scent that now clung to my shirt, mixing with something warmer, more urgent. This was wrong on every level. Career suicide, moral wreckage, yet my body craved the gravity of her, the way she made me feel seen and wanted in a way no one else ever had. Breath quick and against my ear, warm and unsteady, and I felt myself surrendering to the ache that had been growing since that first lingering glance. Time blurred in the dim garage, my heart hammered so loudly I wondered if she could hear it. Every inch of space between us felt charged, alive with the risk we were taking. She whispered my name once, low and breathless, and it undid something inside me. I knew then there was no going back, not fully. The boundary we'd crossed was just physical. It was the quiet admission that we both wanted this more than we feared the consequences. But even in that stolen heat, doubt crept in at the edges. What was I becoming? A man who risked everything for after-hours moments that left me trembling? Her fingers tightened on my shirt, pulling me impossibly closer, and for a second the guilt faded under the weight of pure want. I pressed my forehead to hers, our breaths mingling in the narrow gap, hearts racing in unsteady rhythm. Then her phone buzzed faintly from her bag on the ground, a sharp reminder of the world waiting above us. She didn't reach for it. Instead, her eyes met mine in the low light, dark with the same conflict I felt, and something unspoken passed between us, a promise or maybe a warning that this was only the beginning of how far we might fall. After that night in the garage, after ours became our secret language, a quick glance across the conference table, a text that simply read office at 8:47. And I knew the building would empty out, lights dimming one floor at a time, until only her corner suite remained glowing like a forbidden beacon. The first time we met there on purpose, she had already dimmed the overheads. A slow R&B track played low from her laptop, bass humming through the quiet like a pulse we both tried to ignore. I stepped inside and locked the door behind me, the click sounding louder than it should. She was waiting on the wide leather couch, heels kicked off, legs crossed in sheer black stockings that caught the faint city light from the windows. I sat beside her, close enough that our knees brushed. The heat from her skin seeped through the thin fabric, pulling me in like gravity I couldn't fight. My hand rested on the cushion, inches from hers. Neither of us moved at first. Just breathing, her steady but deeper, jasmine scent she always wore wrapped around me, warmer now, mixed with something richer, more alive. She leaned in first, her breath warm against my ear as she whispered my name. That was all it took. Down the edge of her stocking, tracing upward slowly, feeling the smooth give of the material. Then the delicate sound of threads giving way under pressure, not tearing violently but yielding. Her body shifted closer, surrendering to the moment, and the couch creaks awfully beneath us as the rhythm of the song seemed to match the unsteady beat of my heart. Those nights blurred together after that. Every few evenings, the same ritual. The music low, the door locked, her office becoming our hidden world. The faint tremble in her shoulders as tension built between us. I memorized the jasmine mixed with the subtle salt of shared urgency, the way her fingers would tighten on my shirt without ever saying what we both craved. It wasn't just the pull of her nearness that hooked me. Soon the benefits started slipping in like quiet rewards. She assigned me the projects everyone else fought for, the ones with real visibility. Expense reports that used to sit for days got approved in hours, sometimes with a little extra slipped into an envelope for all the late nights. I felt chosen. Powerful in a way that scared me because it came from her, from us. Yet every time I left her office, heart still racing, shirt carrying traces of her scent, the shame would creep back in the elevator ride down. I'd catch my reflection in the mirrored walls. A man staring back who looked the same but felt different. She had a husband at home, probably wondering why she worked so late again. And here I was, letting her pull me deeper into something that could burn both our lives down. I told myself I could stop. That the next text saying my office, 9 p.m. would be the one I ignored. But the moment it lit up my phone, all the reasons dissolved into pure, aching need. The hunger to feel her close again, to let the world narrow to just her breath against my neck and the low music carrying us somewhere we shouldn't go. One night, after the song had faded and we sat there catching our breath, her hand resting lightly on my arm, she looked at me with eyes still dark from the moment. "Stay a little longer," she murmured, voice soft but commanding in that way only she could manage. My mind screamed that this was becoming too much, that I was changing into someone I barely recognized. Someone willing to risk everything for these stolen pockets of heat and closeness. But I didn't leave, not then. Her fingers traced a slow line along my wrist, and the guilt melted once more under the weight of how badly I wanted to keep falling. The question hung between us unspoken. How much further could we go before everything broke? Rumors didn't creep in quietly. They slammed through the break room like cheap coffee spills. One coworker mentioned seeing us slip out the side entrance after 10, her coat brushing mine too deliberately under the security lights. Whispers followed me to the copier, eyes lingering a second too long on my desk. I laughed it off at first, but the dread settled heavy in my chest, a slow burn that made every hallway feel narrower. Her husband started calling the main line more often, voice clipped and probing when I picked up. "Is she still in a meeting?" he'd ask, and I'd hear her in the background, tone shifting as she took the phone. Once I lingered by her door and caught the light slipping out smooth as silk. She was finishing reports. Nothing more, running late again because of deadlines. My stomach twisted watching her twist the truth, knowing I was the real reason those nights stretched longer. The thrill that once lit me up now tasted like ash, yet when the office emptied, that same pull dragged me back to her door. Last week, everything fractured in the dim glow of her office. The slow R&B track hummed low from her speaker, bass vibrating through the floor like a secret heartbeat. We were close again, her breath warm and uneven against my collar, jasmine vanilla wrapping tighter around us as her fingers rested just above my wrist. She was thinking of leaving him. For me. The words landed like ice water down my spine, freezing the heat between us mid-breath. In that suspended second, I saw it all. Not stolen moments anymore, but to lives cracking open, her marriage splintering under the weight of what we'd almost done too many times. My career hanging by a thread if anyone connected the dots. I wasn't just the guy caught in her gravity. I was becoming the other man, the one who could watch everything collapse and still crave the fall. My mind screamed to pull away, to end the ache before it swallowed us both, but my body stayed rooted, pulse hammering against the silence. I walked out that night with her scent still clinging to my shirt, the hallway lights blurring as guilt clawed deeper. Every step toward the elevator felt like wading through regret, yet the hunger refused to loosen its hold. How could something that felt this alive be so wrong? I told myself this was the line, the moment to step back, to reclaim the version of me who didn't lie by omission or count the hours until her next message. But then my phone lit up around midnight, her name glowing soft and insistent. Just 3 words in that familiar tone, the one that always unraveled my resolve. "Come over'd." My thumb hovered, heart splitting between the dread pooling in my gut and the magnetic need to feel her nearness one more time. The music, the warmth seeping through fabric, the way her breath would hitch when everything almost tipped over the edge. It all flooded back, drowning the warnings. I knew I should delete it, block the pull before it dragged us under completely. I grabbed my keys, the ache winning again like it always did. This wasn't just desire anymore. It was a quiet destruction we both kept feeding, pretending the fire wouldn't consume everything we touched. So tell me honestly, am I completely out of line for wanting her this badly, or would you do the same in my shoes? Drop a like if you've ever been in a situation like this. Subscribe for the full uncensored details of what happened next. And let me know in the comments, should I walk away or keep living this dangerous